Hey everybody, it's the Last Raider, and today just going to do a video on Warner Brothers recently coming out and saying they don't know how to make Superman relevant. Which kind of made me chuckle a little bit when I seen it. I've seen a couple other YouTubers do videos on it, and something that I wanted to harp on is why. Everyone talks about how they could make Superman relevant, but there's a reason why Warner Brothers says that they don't know how to make Superman relevant. And to an extent, it kind of stems down to what they're not actually saying and what they really want to say, but are just a little too afraid to talk about is it's not so much on how to make Superman relevant, but more along the lines of how do you liberalize Superman or how do you SJW Superman? And the problem is, and what kind of makes me reassured about the character, is Superman is one of those characters that almost by definition, this is why also you probably see people saying they want to see a black Superman or they want to see Superman become a Hispanic person. I think one guy on the internet actually stated, I remember seeing on Twitter, he said he's tired of seeing the poor white farmer boy that Superman is portrayed as many times. And the reason being is because in that current iteration, Superman's kind of immune to the SJW liberalization to an extent. Bendis has really attempted it, and all he did was make Superman just look like a lowlife to some extent. It just made him look like a cuck completely. And that's about the best they can really do with Superman. They can just cuck him up real good. The Supergirl series does this as well. But when you stop and think about Superman, the problem with Superman right now is, and they've attempted to do this plenty of times, and it kind of started tanking the comics when they did it, was they took Superman from an American hero to a world citizen. And it's kind of stupid because world citizen for Superman, it still makes him absolutely completely alien and actually takes him away from being more relatable, because who is a world citizen in the world today? Well, no one, because our world's divided into countries and factions across the entire planet, and no one relates to Superman nowadays, I believe, because he's considered a world citizen. See, if you were to have Superman be an American, well, there's lots of ways people could, or just an American hero and an American citizen. Superman becomes super relatable after that. It's kind of, oh, well, that was unintentional. Two supers in one sentence was unintentional, but oh well, there we go. Anyway, it becomes really difficult to relate to him when he's a world citizen. But if you make him an American citizen, Superman's sense of patriotism can be felt by countrymen that feel a lot of patriotism. Also, his critique of his own country can be felt by people who are critical of their own countries. This makes him highly relatable. And yeah, he's got superpowers, he can do things, but he's going to do things through the right actions. So the problem is not we can't make Superman relatable. The problem is we can't make Superman into what we want without really pissing off the fan base and knowing for damn certain. I mean, here's the thing. If they do a black Superman, that's not going to happen because black Superman doesn't sell well in China. China will not stand for it. China had Finn taken out. Disney had to take Finn out of almost all of the Star Wars movie. In fact, in my opinion, that's probably why Finn's character, John's character, was actually taken so badly out of context and just completely turned into a goof, because they had to make the black guy looks stupid, so the Chinese audiences would be more like, so they didn't have to do so much trouble editing him out. So if he looks like a goofball and a dumbass the whole time through the show, China will be more lenient because they're racially making him look like an idiot, and so they're actually dividing things into more of a racist category to appease a group of racists in another country. Go figure. That's like making Jewish people look dumb to appease a bunch of Nazis over in Germany because you want to sell a movie over there, which is absolute asinine nonsense. And that's me using liberal logic against liberals. But how would I make Superman relevant? Or relatable? Number one, I would revoke Superman's world citizen status. Two, I would probably do a small story arc where, Superman goes down to border security, fights several cartel members, and, go through the real complexities of the border crisis, because you don't have just people trying to get across the border. In some aspects, you've got some cartel members saying they can get you across the border much easier than going through customs, and then them taking advantage of those people. Yes, it takes a long time to get through the border customs, but sometimes I've talked to people who have been down the border, and they'll tell you, the reason why we keep sending border agents and money down there is because there's a problem at the border. If more people were to try to come through the legal means, we would start sending money over there, because that would create a crisis at the border entry, at the port of entries down by the border. So they'd have to send more people in, to screen people and everything else. Wouldn't be such a big deal. So Superman, you could have a small subplot in there where Superman, goes to Lois and says, you know what? I need a favor, Miss Lane. And Lois is like, okay, what favor is that? And then the next scene, you have the paper pulling out saying, Superman asks Congress and the president for a chance to become a U.S. citizen, and have Superman walk into the citizen's office, have cameras shooting, have him in the classrooms, and the awkward moments where Superman is learning about the United States. Have a good point where, you build up the patriotism of the United States, because, and this is the reason why I say you want to do this, because Superman is a bit like the American flag in terms of representation. One of the things that my grandfather always told me, he said, the American flag is not a representation of what America is currently. It's a representation of what America could strive to be. We're not, and he stated this very candidly. He said, you have the civil rights movement that happened. You also have the United States getting rid of slavery and abolishing it. He said, slavery at the time was not what defined the United States. What defines us as a country is we have tried to make our people freer. We have tried to make a better society. And if we have a hope to push for that better society, then and you believe in that, then the American flag has to be protected, and you will not want to burn the American flag. It's another reason why my grandfather hated people who burned the American flag, because he said the whole purpose of the United States is an experiment, but it's an experiment in which you can affect the outcome. And he always stated, he said, people who are burning the flag and wanting something else, he said, are taking the best chance that we have of creating a better, freer, more fair society. And they're stomping it flat, they're burning it down, and they're saying, we give up on that. He said these would have been the people that when people talked about slavery being abolished, they would have simply looked at them and said, that's never going to happen. We're going to have to tear down the entire government and rebuild it to make slavery illegal. Well, no, you didn't. It just took an act of Congress to, go in there, tell everyone, say, look, the Constitution says all men are free. Therefore, in good faith, we cannot have slaves in this country if all men are free, because we were slaves to Britain. And those were some of the arguments against it. There were also some religious arguments against it at the time. So the idea of Superman is to strive for perfection. So you have this, or a newer, better tomorrow. Now, Superman's often called the man of tomorrow. He's supposed to be a symbol of absolute hope. Okay? And so you could have that situation where Superman becomes a citizen, and afterward, the final scene after Superman gets his citizenship, have some people from the planet and everything, they all ask and say, have Lois Lane ask him, well, Superman, why? Well, I understand that you did this. What the world wants to know is why. Why would Superman become a citizen of the United States? And Superman just looks down and says, I've seen problems, and I understand why some people come across the border. They feel that becoming a citizen in the United States is too hard. You hear some of our politicians say that because of language gaps and cultural gaps, that it's next to impossible for a vast majority of people to become an American citizen. But here I am. I'm from another planet whose entire ecosystem and even myself physically, I am as far from American as an ant is to an elephant. But I can become an American citizen. How much easier would it be for someone whose only real difference is a small cultural gap and a little language barrier? But otherwise, physically, they're just as human as any other American. If I can become this citizen, then any of you can become a citizen as well. And so, have that moment where, Superman does some hope, have him fight like maybe a galactic level threat, have him do, have him like pull a train out of a forest fire or something like that. There's a lot of ways you could have Superman, fight. Have him go into California where the forest fires are at, and have Superman, flying through there, just blasting it with cold breath and pulling people out of fires. You can make Superman relatable to people by taking their problems. But that's how you make a character relatable. What Warner Brothers talks about, though, and why we're probably not going to see a good Superman movie for a long time, in my opinion, and as I stated before, Warner Brothers is looking for a way to SJW Superman or make him more liberal. And the thing is, Superman's more of a conservative superhero. You have to remember, he's a farm boy, and most farmers' kids out in what is considered flyover country, their stances on guns, abortion, a lot of those other things are not stances that liberals, most liberals that are running Hollywood, agree with. So the problem is they couldn't greenlight a true Superman show like we had with Christopher Reeves and all of them. But at the same time, they can't take a liberal version of it because it's so far out of Superman's character, the fans will not go to the movies and watch the movie. Like I said, it's not about making Superman relevant. It's about making Superman into something, some more of a political tool than anything else. By the way, tell me what you think. Do you think Superman, the possibility that they'll actually make Superman relatable and true to character will actually happen, or do you think it's probably not going to happen? Also, remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell for notification. Also, check back with the channel every so often, because sometimes the notification bell don't work for me for the people I sign in on. I have to check my subscription feed every so often to make sure I'm not missing a video from someone else. Anyway, I'm the Last Raider. Keep your head on the swivel, stay frosty, and I'll see you guys next time.